The moment the camera pans to Sally Field's face, you can almost feel the years of untold stories ready to spill. At 78, she steps forward not as the bright-eyed ingenue of the 1960s, nor the Emmy-winning powerhouse of the 1970s, but as a woman who has carried ghosts of the past long enough. Today, she finally reveals the hidden truths behind one of America's most beloved road movie comedies, Smokey and the Bandit. But this isn't just a nostalgic deep dive. It's a revelation about the grit, the pain, and the unexpected fire that sparked on that Georgia set in the sweltering summer of '77. From the opening seconds, the script defies expectations. We don't start with a simple synopsis or a clip montage. Instead, the narrator poses a question that grips attention. What happens when the funniest car chase in cinema history masks a darker backstage struggle? We flash back to an early morning on May 23, 1977, where the sun hovered just above the horizon and Burt Reynolds swaggered onto the tarmac with a mischievous grin. Next to him, Sally Field delivered her trademark warmth, but inside, a quieter storm was raging. By weaving contrast framing into every scene, the viewer experiences the collision of two worlds, the glossy Hollywood sheen and the unvarnished reality behind the stars. Burt, at 40, was the epitome of rugged charm. Sally, at 30, was determined to break free from her cute TV actress label. As the camera follows their journey from rehearsals to impromptu pranks, we sense the underlying tension. Each time Reynolds slipped a whoopee cushion under a co-star's chair, Field forced a laugh while her mind raced through her early career, a path littered with slights, typecasting, and one defining moment that nearly ended everything. That moment, it turns out, arrived not on the smoke trail highway, but deep within Field's personal archives. On set, she was expected to slip seamlessly into a rollicking buddy comedy. Off camera, she grappled with the very real pressure of reinvention. We pause on her memoir page, the 2018 chapters where she confessed to long-buried insecurities, the nagging fear that she had peaked too early, the sleepless nights worrying she'd be remembered only as the flying nun, and the startling revelation that, even in success, she felt invisible. Through smooth transitions, the narrative shifts from her internal monologue to concrete details about the script she almost rejected. We listen to an audio clip of Field's voice, clear and unvarnished, explaining that when she first cracked open the Smokey screenplay, she found it flimsy, predictable, and beneath her ambitions. This admission sets the stage for the most surprising twist. Burt Reynolds, convinced of her talent, guaranteed her a chance to reshape the script through improvisation. Suddenly, the movie's legendary ad-libbed charm wasn't an accident. It was a lifeline that rescued both actor and film. The tone stays conversational, yet charged with undercurrents of suspense. We step into the editing room, where a grainy recording plays, Reynolds joking about Field's on-screen kiss as the worst kiss I ever had. The joke lands with a jolt of humor, but it also cracks open the facade. We see Field's quick smile in a candid behind-the-scenes shot, her eyes flickering with hurt. The narration coolly observes that in those few seconds of laughter lay the seeds of a rift that would last 3 decades. By then, the audience is fully invested. They've laughed at the hijinks, felt the heat of George's summer, mirrored Field's frustration, and now, they want to know how that silent divide between the two leads endured long past the movie's release. And here comes the hook that shifts the entire frame. Despite the film's staggering box office haul of $126 million and its 2 inevitable sequels, Field and Reynolds never spoke again. For 30 years. With that bombshell, the script vaults into a new act. We cycle through headline clippings announcing their joint press tours in July '77, the laughter photographs at premieres, and finally, the complete disappearance of joint interviews by the early '80s. It's a masterclass in pacing. Viewers glide from high-octane energy to contemplative silence, each transition smoother than the last, every beat designed to keep eyes glued to the screen. And through it all, Sally's voice guides us, not as a passive subject, but as an active storyteller reclaiming her own narrative. The silence that followed the roaring applause at Smokey's premiere was deafening. 1 minute, Sally and Burt stood side by side, beaming under the flashbulbs. The next, they vanished into separate orbits. Press junkets scheduled back-to-back suddenly featured only one star per session. Industry insiders whispered that discussions once focused on sequels now hinged on how to navigate the awkward tension between the film's two leads. It was as if the film's signature CB radio chatter had jammed on a single, unspoken frequency, nothing to say to each other. Ironically, this crescendo of silence began with a burst of creativity. On set, Bert's insistence on improvisation gave Sally the freedom she craved. Their famously off-the-cuff dialogue wasn't just clever writing. It was a lifeline for an actress determined to shed her TV girl image. Yet, that creative spark also exposed a deeper fissure. As the cameras rolled, Sally tested the boundaries of her own comedic instincts. In one early take, she ad-libbed a line about speeding tickets that left Bert laughing so hard he nearly missed his mark. Unbeknownst to the crew, each improvised moment chipped away at any remaining script-driven cushion between them. When editing began, Bert's favorite outtakes, those genuine reactions, those shared chuckles, made the final cut. Audiences felt electrified by their chemistry, but off-camera, the same chemistry felt combustible. In private, Sally recalls a scene where Bert teased her about a flubbed line by planting a "kick me" sign on her back. Laughter echoed around the Georgia ranch, but Sally later admitted in her memoir, "It was funny, in front of everyone. Afterwards, I felt a sting I couldn't quite name. That sting would stretch into decades." What pushed their bond from playful to permanently fractured? It wasn't a single betrayal, but a series of small betrayals disguised as harmless jokes. Behind closed doors, Bert's humor occasionally crossed a line. A joke about Sally's appearance, launched offhandedly, left her re-examining every mirror in her trailer. Worse yet was the constant power play. In group meetings, Bert would dominate conversations about character choices and shot setups, subtly reminding everyone that he had pulled in the box office bucks for years, and that he, more than any screenwriter, director, or producer, knew what audiences wanted. Working alongside him, Sally felt both flattered and belittled, flattered by his admiration, belittled by his unspoken assumption that she needed his guidance. This dynamic resurfaced at the film's wrap party. Photographs show Sally laughing at one corner, Bert surrounded by co-stars at another. You can almost sense the gravitational pull between them, inches apart, yet worlds away. As the band played Eastbound and Down, the irony was almost too sharp. They were eastbound, heading home to Los Angeles, but neither felt the freedom of going down together. To peel back the layers, we rewind to Sally's mindset on the final week of shooting. Exhausted from 12-hour days chasing down dirt roads and executing complex car stunts, she was grappling with a fear that went beyond script approval. What if her big screen debut, already a gamble, became the one shot she'd never get again? In her diary, she wrote, "I want to leave this set knowing I've done more than just mimic Bert's bravado. I need to feel like me." That need, to be seen, to be heard, kept her on high alert for every slight, every joke that hinted she'd been cast primarily as Burt Reynolds' spark plug. Yet even as she battled insecurities, Sally displayed remarkable resilience. After principal photography wrapped, she dedicated herself to the film's promotional tour with a tenacity that astonished publicists. For 3 weeks, she traversed the country alongside Burt, from radio interviews in Houston to red carpets in New York, perfecting her anecdotes and sharpening her quips. But each smile felt increasingly forced, until finally, at a fan Q&A in Chicago, she cut through the rehearsed banter and delivered an answer that stunned the audience. "I love that car chase, but let's not pretend I wasn't terrified half the time." The crowd erupted in laughter and applause, but Burt bristled at her candid self-focus. After that night, Sally and Burt never shared a stage again. Their next scheduled appearance, a TV chat show in Los Angeles, proceeded with only Sally on the couch. Viewers noticed Burt's absence, then the absence of explanation. Tabloids speculated. Creative differences, contract disputes, diva demands. But in truth, it was far more personal. By publicly asserting her own narrative, Sally had unwittingly trespassed on Burt's comfort zone, where he had always been the undisputed lead. In the decades that followed, neither star publicly acknowledged the rift. Industry folklore filled the void. Some claimed Burt felt betrayed. Others said Sally's rising dramatic acclaim intimidated him. Meanwhile, Sally's career soared. Roles in dramas, big awards, and eventually celebrated acceptance speeches that cemented her place among Hollywood's elite. Yet she carried the weight of unspoken regret. In private interviews, she admitted she wished she'd navigated that tension differently, that she'd found a way to balance her own spotlight with his. What's remarkable is how this silent rift illustrates a fundamental truth about creative partnerships. Success can bind collaborators together and simultaneously drive them apart. Smokey and the Bandit remains a testament to their synergy. Its laughter still echoes, and yet its aftermath became a cautionary tale. Two stars at their peaks, linked forever in celluloid camaraderie, but estranged in life. As we reflect on this paradox, we hear Sally's voice again, steady, unguarded. I was 30, I was hungry, I was fired up to prove myself. But in the process, I lost my friend. It's that confessional note that elevates her revelation from mere celebrity gossip to a universal story about ambition, friendship, and the cost of going your own way. The reflection in Sally Field's eyes is not the sparkle of a youthful starlet, but the steady light of someone who has lived and learned enough to speak with rare honesty. At 78, she leans forward in the dim, softly lit studio, her voice calm, yet crackling with the urgency of a confession decades overdue. When she begins, it's as though the years peel away, revealing a mosaic of triumphs and wounds that underpinned her journey through Hollywood's golden age. In that silence before her first words, you sense she's weighed every memory, chosen her moment, and now stands ready to reshape a story that has too long been half told. It's a stark contrast from the gleaming premieres of 1977, when photographers jockeyed for the perfect shot of her next to Burt Reynolds, both beaming in their tailored suits. Back then, the laughter of fans felt endless, but backstage, the script felt brittle and the atmosphere electric with unspoken tension. Fast forward to today, and the past no longer carries the same glamour. Instead, it carries lessons. In her soft, deliberate tone, Sally revisits those sultry Georgia afternoons on the Bandit set, when the cameras cut, but the real drama never did. She admits she saw the script's flaws immediately, sensed its empty spaces, and only agreed to join because Reynolds promised to fill them with genuine improvisation. Little did she know at the time that his offhand jokes would eventually harden into a wall between them. Now, her gaze shifts as she recalls one of the film's best-kept secrets: Bert's clandestine reliance on Percodan and Valium to maintain his on-screen bravado. She describes the first time she noticed his trembling hands during a take, the way he lit a cigarette before every scene as though bracing himself for combat. Concerned, she arranged a discreet medical checkup at the Miami Heart Institute, convinced his health scare was more than fear of stunts gone wrong. When the report came back, all clear, she offered support, encouragement, empathy, even suggestions of therapy, but Reynolds dismissed her efforts as delusional poppycock. In that dismissal lay the fracture that no reshoots could repair. Telling that story now is a catharsis. Sally pauses, her chin tilting slightly upward, as if steeling herself. I was so invested in helping, she murmurs, and it felt like betrayal, not of me, but of who I thought we were. 3 decades of silence followed, yet she never stopped wondering if she could have bridged the gap. On set, they cracked wise, exchanged pranks, and shared electric moments of spontaneity. Off-set, she felt invisible in his spotlight, uncertain if their partnership was a genuine friendship or simply a co-starring bargain. As she speaks, you realize the cost of their unspoken rift extended far beyond movie lore. It soured careers, shaped personal narratives, and for Sally, left a lingering ache that only full disclosure could soothe. From that revelation blooms a broader truth about Sally's life beyond Bandit: the conviction that honesty can empower. She ties her decision to finally speak out to the same courage that led her to challenge Hollywood's gender hierarchy, to step on stages and at award shows and declare her convictions on women's rights and peace. Viewers will recall her 2007 Emmy acceptance, when she was cut off after uttering "goddamn wars," a politician's cringe moment turned rallying cry. Today, she points out that exposing the Bandit set rift felt no different. Speaking the unspeakable, she claims, released her from an old fear that revealing hidden fractures might break the magic completely. Instead, It deepened her grasp of what magic truly means, the freedom to claim one's whole story. In the hush of that studio, she contrasts her 30-year-old self, hungry for every role, desperate to escape the flying nun typecast, with her 78-year-old self, who cares less about box office numbers and more about emotional truth. She chuckles softly, admitting she'd trade $1 million paycheck for the chance to rewind and offer her younger self a single piece of advice. Hold your ground, love fiercely, but know when to say enough. That line lands with the weight of decades, and you feel the shift from anecdote to universal lesson. It's that gentle pivot, from Hollywood memoir to human handbook, that makes her confession resonate far beyond celluloid. Just as the old CB radios kept truckers tuned to distant voices on dusty highways, Sally's candid admission now keeps us tuned to her life's transmission. Vibrant, imperfect, authentic. She invites viewers to consider their own Bandit moments. The collaborations that went awry, the halfway conversations left unsaid, the pride that blocked the path back to reconciliation. In every pause, you can hear a question echoing. What truths have you hidden, and what healing might unfurl if you spoke them now? That implicit query transforms the narrative, lessening the distance between star and spectator until we feel implicated, activated, ready for our own reveal. Before the lights dim on this section, she offers one final glance at the Bandit legacy. Yes, the film's car chases and comedic timing endure, but she insists its real legacy is a cautionary tale about trust. Smokey and the Bandit can still make you laugh, she says, but never forget how easy it is to laugh past the cracks in the pavement. The camera holds that moment as a promise. There's more to come, more secrets, more reckonings, more opportunities to see Sally Field as not just an icon, but a woman who, at 78, chose honesty over illusion. Even as Smokey and the Bandit drove into legend, Sally Field's personal drive steered her toward uncharted horizons. Section 4 opens on the morning after the film's record-breaking release, a world where her name splashed across marquee lights. Yet her phone remained silent from the one person she most longed to hear from. It's here that her next revelation cuts deepest. The irony that a movie celebrating high-octane freedom trapped her in a silent partnership. But before we chase that silent echo, let's chart the immediate fallout of Bandit's triumph. Within weeks, Hollywood brass lined up to offer Field leading roles that once eluded her. The same studios that had pigeonholed her into sweet sitcom girls suddenly courted her for dramas, thrillers, even experimental stage work. Each offer felt like a fresh start, but also a reminder of the gulf left by that fractured bond. With each envelope she opened, a voice inside whispered, "Great, but is this your break? Or theirs?" That nagging doubt set the stage for her next career-defining pivot. Contrast frames her first post-Bandit choice against her early days of typecasting. Where once she'd cling to any gig that kept her visible, now she scoured scripts for roles with depth, nuance, and emotional risk. It began with Norma Ray, the gritty mill worker whose steely resolve mirrored Sally's own. In the hot Alabama factories she visited for research, she felt the sting of cotton fibers and the roar of machinery, an echo of Georgia's dusty highways but infused with real-life stakes. Playing Norma was catharsis, a way to anchor her talent in a character whose fight for dignity matched her own struggle for recognition. Then came the Oscars, a glittering moment under those iconic chandeliers where Sally's name echoed through a hushed hall. Yet at that apex of acclaim, the old ache resurfaced. No invite, no pat on the back from Reynolds, no callback to the camaraderie they once shared. Instead, she accepted awards with her closest collaborators by her side, leaning into a support system that whispered, "You belong here." It was a bittersweet triumph. She'd conquered the screens and stages she'd always dreamed of, but the silence with Bert reverberated louder than any standing ovation. We transition now into her Emmy-winning return to television with Brothers and Sisters, another crossroads town where loyalty and betrayal played out in suburban drama. Here, Field portrayed Nora Walker, a matriarch whose family secrets threatened to unravel at every turn. Ironically, the show's scripted betrayals mirrored her own off-screen rift, her character's children harboring hidden pains, her husband's unspoken regrets. each subplot offering Sally a coded language for her own unanswered questions. As Nora, she found a new audience, younger and diverse, who celebrated her warmth and steel. Yet every scene tapped into that core truth. Success without resolution is a half-told story. Section 4's heartbeat quickens as we zero in on the cultural threads Bandit wove into American cinema. From CB radio slang to CB-themed diner decor, the film's playful rebellion sparked a mini-revolution. But Sally's role bore a paradox. She was both bandit and sheriff, the woman behind the wheel and the passenger in a man's world. Today, she pulls back the lens on that duality, confessing how she internalized the film's gender dynamics. At 78, she chuckles at the memory of excessive leg shakes under the script supervisor's stand-in, acknowledging how often she was framed as eye candy, even in a story lauding automotive bravado. That unscripted awareness, she now explains, became a driving force behind her advocacy for women's creative equality. A smooth transition then carries us into her politicized Emmy speech of 2007, a moment when she dared to merge artistry and activism. If mothers ruled the world, she told that stunned audience, there would be no goddamn wars. Cut off for the single expletive, her words nonetheless blazed through the industry like a spark hit to gasoline. As the world debated censorship and patriotism, Sally held firm. Truth often arrives in the heat of bold language. Her candid perspective on Smokey and the Bandit owes its candor to that same philosophy. Speaking out, even if it means losing the perfect take, is better than perpetuating a false quiet. Then comes our strongest hook yet. For the first time, she'll share whether reconciliation with Reynolds ever crossed her mind. In an intimate moment, she admits that years later, at a private tribute for Bert's legacies, she nearly sent a note. Let's talk. But she hesitated, haunted by the fear that time had not healed, that the wounds of ego and silence ran deeper than either would ever admit. She left the invitation unsent, proof that even grown women of influence sometimes freeze at the gates of forgiveness. Section 4 closes with the promise of one final revelation, an unseen moment captured on Super 8 film, rediscovered in her attic, showing Field and Reynolds laughing together, unguarded, after a grueling chase sequence. That candid reel, she says, holds the blueprint of what their bond could have been: raw, joyous, equal partners in crime. The question she leaves viewers with is simple yet profound. If you could find a lost scene in your own life, would you press play? That grainy Super 8 footage caught Sally and Bert laughing after a long day on set. Their faces, lit by the projector's glow, revealed a bond raw and unguarded. In those frames, Sally's guard dropped and her smile bridged every divide. Bert's laugh matched hers, echoing like a promise they'd left unfulfilled. Watching decades later, she saw how fleeting that moment had been. It stayed with her that they both walked away. She often wondered why they never pressed rewind. Today, Sally describes how that reel became a metaphor for every unfinished chapter in her life. She found it tucked inside a battered cardboard box in her attic, labeled simply Bandit Scrap. When she fed it into the projector spooled too quickly at first, then slowed into cinematic clarity. In that flicker of light, she recognized two ambitions colliding: her own need for creative respect and Bert's quest for unbroken ad-libbed brilliance. Both were valid, yet they never found an equal rhythm. For years, she refrained from sharing the footage. It felt too precious to air, she says softly, like carrying an old photograph you can't bear to lose. But as she watched the laughter roll across the screen, she realized silence had done more harm than honesty. That epiphany led her to this moment, speaking out, raw and complete. The footage, she decided, would be the centerpiece of her true Bandit story. Not the script she nearly rejected, nor the box office numbers, but the humanity behind every roar of the engines. That choice mirrors her journey beyond Smokey and the Bandit. After those Georgia days, Sally faced another kind of rediscovery: who she was without the buzzing set lights. She dove into roles that demanded emotional courage, from the cold dust in Norma Ray's lungs to the fractured psyche of Sybil. Each character required her to excavate hidden sorrow and resilience. But only now did she understand that exposing her own broken story could be the bravest performance of all. In this final act of self-revelation, Sally frames her Bandit confession as both an apology and a gift. An apology to Bert, though unsent, for letting their relationship fray. A gift to herself, and to audiences, for refusing to let perfect illusions stand between her and the truth. She believes that kind of vulnerability has the power to repair not only forgotten friendships, but the wider pact between star and spectator. When she speaks, you feel the trust being restored. Her modern life feels worlds apart from that dusty Georgia ranch, yet the lessons remain alive. She's now a mentor to young actors, emphasizing that humor and heart can't flourish under the weight of unspoken grievances. In workshops, she screens a single frame from that Super 8 reel, asking students to build a narrative around it. It becomes an exercise in empathy. How to imagine the years of silence etched between two shared moments of joy. The room always falls utterly still. As she turns off the projector one last time, Sally's closing words pierce through the darkness. We chase legends, but live in the margins between takes. Those margins hold our truest selves. It's a line that resonates because it transcends Hollywood. Whether you're a filmmaker, a friend, or someone nursing a silent wound, it asks, what truths do you owe the people who once laughed with you? In the final moments, she revisits the question she first posed. What if they had pressed rewind on their friendship? Would Bert's hand rest on her shoulder? Would she have whispered the one line that broke down their distance? She won't fully answer, but she leaves a gentle invitation. Revisit your old footage, your half-told stories. Let the reels run, no matter how grainy or painful. Because in every replay lies a chance to bridge what time has worn away. Now the full circle comes into view. A story not of perfect endings, but of ongoing invitations. Sally Field's final confession about Smokey and the Bandit transcends celebrity memoir, landing squarely in the terrain of human reckoning. She reminds us that life's most meaningful scenes are often the unscripted ones, captured not on high-definition film, but in the flicker of candid moments. She reflects on the paradox that defined her experience in '77, freedom on celluloid, yet constraint in camaraderie. Freewheeling car chases, improvised banter, and on-set laughter were all true and unrepeatable, but so was the rift that followed. In revisiting that duality, she teaches a lesson about ownership. You can own the applause, the box office receipts, and the legacy of a hit film, yet still be haunted by the silence of one missing voice. With characteristic warmth, she addresses viewers directly. What relationships in your life bear the weight of untold stories? Which credits roll in the background of your memories, unseen by anyone but you? Because Sally insists that every person holds a Super 8 reel in their attic, moments rewound, paused, or left unscreened. The choice to press play is both simple and profound. It requires curiosity, courage, and a willingness to watch the frame tremble. In closing this chapter, she offers 3 guiding principles gleaned from her journey. First, seek balance in every partnership. Whether you're co-leading a blockbuster or co-navigating a long friendship, honor each voice. Freedom of expression doesn't mean freedom to overlook another's truth. Second, recognize that unspoken conflicts gain power over time. A single unsent message can echo for decades, growing louder in the silence. Lastly, embrace vulnerability as a creative force. Sally's willingness to unveil her regrets did more to cement her legacy than any on-screen accolade. She leans back, smiling at an unseen camera, and recounts a moment from last year when she screened Smokey and the Bandit for a group of teenage fans. Kids who'd never known her as Gidget or the Flying Nun. They gasped at Bert's one-liners, cheered during the chase, and then paused at a vintage news clip showing Sally and Bert arriving under a canopy of flashbulbs. One teenager asked, "Why don't they do interviews together anymore?" The question hung in the theater, a modern echo of that old divide. Sally said, "I didn't have a good answer." And yet in that admission lay her truth. Because truth is seldom tidy. It's more like a stretch of highway, full of twisty turns, unexpected detours, and blind spots. You don't know what you'll encounter around the next bend, but you keep driving. That drive fueled Sally back in 1977 and keeps propelling her at 78. The film may have immortalized the open road, but her life has shown that the real journey happens in the conversations we almost never have. As the final minutes of her Bandit story wind down, She returns once more to the attic footage. This time, she presses play for the camera crew, letting the projector's hum fill the room. On screen, we see Bert and Sally mid-laugh, their guard completely down. They lean against a vintage Trans Am, laughter spilling into the Georgia dusk. No script, no audience, just two actors reveling in the shared thrill of creation. And then Bert's hand sweeps across Sally's shoulder in a gesture of genuine affection. That simple touch, replayed after decades, brings a hush. Sally's voice overlays the scene. That's the friend I missed. That's the heart I wanted to protect. The moment dissolves into grainy end credits, leaving viewers with an unspoken invitation. Forgiveness is possible, even if belated. Healing begins not with grand gestures, but with small recognitions. A touch, a word, a reel dusted off. She wraps up her revelation with a gentle exhortation. If you carry a story too heavy to speak, consider this your invitation. Dust off the box. Screen the reel. Let your own light shine beyond the cracks. And in that final line, she extends the hand she never offered Burt Reynolds in time. It's a gesture that transcends guilt or blame. It's a call to embrace the full spectrum of our own stories. As the studio lights dim, we realize this is not merely the end of a feature about a 1977 comedy classic. It's a masterclass in personal reckoning and creative authenticity. Sally Field at 78 doesn't just reveal the truth about Smokey and the Bandit. She reveals the truth about risk, resilience, and reconciliation. And by doing so, she turns her Bandit confession into a universal roadmap, pointing the way not just through Hollywood lore, but through the unscripted highways of our own lives.